the naked truth. It's the things that you observe and see from far away, and yet sometimes even up close. You examine and see those things for what they really are. Although some may say you're only seeing it from your perspective, and yet you're seeing them for what they really are, the naked truth. How do you see the naked truth? See, what I've come to realize over the years is there are many people who see and observe the naked truth for what it is, just like me, and yet they're too afraid to say the things that they see. Because see, to speak the way that I speak is to obtain loss in relation to relationships. To see something that's standing there for what it actually is, and know and understand that very thing that you're viewing and observing, what you're seeing in your mind, and you seeing it as it's playing out in front of you, and you're seeing that for what it is, to actually speak out and say that you're seeing it for that, is to actually lose people in your life, and that's actually for a benefit. Never take seeing the truth for what it is and losing people, never take that for a loss. Actually take it for a gain. Because if people around you are not willing to understand that the truth is right in front of their face, and they need to face the fact that it's right in front of their face, if they can't accept that, then you don't need those type of people around. Because a people like that, they're willing to accept anything to the point that if someone kills someone next to them right in front of their face, they will not think nothing of it. Those type of people won't speak up, is what I'm saying. They won't speak up. See, in the community where I come from, which was the ghetto and the hood, there was all sorts of people that had knew other people who were killing other people who looked just like them, and yet they keep it a secret. They keep it a secret. How could you know that somebody had went and molested somebody, and you never came out and put the truth there so the police can find and search out this person and put them in jail? How could you know that your very friend or somebody, this situation is real, it happened? How could you know that your very friend had went and killed somebody, and yet you not even go tell the authorities? Because see, for me, I'm afraid to stand close to anything like that, for the simple fact is, if that person was willing and into murdering someone that was standing next to them, I'm saying listen to what I'm saying. If somebody goes and they kill somebody, and they tell you that they killed somebody, and you don't go and you don't report and turn that in, do you know and understand that person can turn around and kill you? It's just that easy. And yet, for me to speak out stuff like that is to obtain loss. It's loss in relationships in that. It is. Because see, deep under that is a seed of truth. It's a seed of truth. It's saying that there is a problem here that needs to be resolved. It needs to be fixed, and it needs to be handled. And for me, when I view problems, I go straight for it, and I take the problem on head on, and I go to try to fix it and resolve it. That way I can be better prepared for the next situation life has for me. See, as we here on earth, life just does not present one situation. There's many situations in life that life presents to us as we go along this journey, not just one. So therefore, if you don't fix a situation now, what happens is that situation tends to build up into something more beyond the situation does. If you don't catch it at first, it's going to present a bigger problem in which you are no longer able to handle and manage. And then not only that, as you're trying to view this problem while looking away from the problem, more and more problems is slowly cropping up and creeping up. how your life end up in ruin. It does. Your life ends up in ruin if you don't fix what is cropping up as it's cropping up. And so, and me saying this, speaking the naked truth, the reason why I speak the naked truth is not to literally get people out of my space. Yes, sometimes it has been that. It has been that in the area of, if I'm trying to get rid of people out of my space, it's because I know they don't serve no better purpose to themselves or even to the world. They serve no purpose. They just are. And I don't even know, if I don't know what you are, then that means you don't know what you are. So you just are, right? Those type of people, they can actually be a hindrance to other people. Those type of people could actually destroy other people. Those type of people, it could be, anything can go wrong with those type of people. And so I have to call, when I'm speaking on different things, and not just people, situations as well, as I'm speaking on these things, I'm keenly observing it with a very observant eye. As I said before, I see subtle things that other people fail to see. And so as I'm speaking these things out, the intention is not to hurt people's feelings. That's not the intention. The intention is for me to vocalize the very thing that I'm seeing. Because remember, every life holds a story. Everyone holds a voice, which is a vehicle to speak the things that you are seeing. And not only that, to not speak on something and know that there is something there, such as a problem, is to bypass the fact that there is chaos on the way. To make an excuse for stuff that is there, that is broken, to make an excuse for that, is to understand a bigger problem is going to come behind that. Once you begin to see a truth, which is in relation to a problem, once you see that and you don't take it upon your own hands and your own physicality to say, okay, you know what, there's an issue right there, and you just allow that thing to continue to lay and be broken, if you don't face that and you then examine it and try to get some help for whatever that situation is, it's going to lead to turmoil for not just the people that's around you, for even you yourself. Because if you're standing amongst somebody that is broken and they're completely broken, what they'll come do is, because they're broken, they'll come damage you. And even that is a problem. So what you must do is take it upon yourself and say, you know what, I see and understand that you here have problems. We are going to try to work and resolve this matter and issue before it gets out of hand. Because if we don't resolve this issue and matter before it gets out of hand, there will be an explosion here. And no telling what that explosion is going to be. It could be a school shooting. It could be anything of that caliber and of that nature. So yes, when I see that there are problems, I speak on the problems in the issue at hand. I don't have a choice, because see, it would be stupid on my end for me to sit here and see that there's a problem and never say anything at all. Because once again, every life holds a story. And so even when I speak on my story, I can't apologize for that. Why would I live to be almost 40 years old in a body full of real life stories of the truth of everything I've seen? Why would I apologize on that, knowing that my life holds real value and somebody out here might hold an actual similar story? Why would I apologize for that? Because see, you live one day and then you live another day where you're dead. So life and death comes. That's how it comes. Life comes for you and it delivers you through, and death comes for you. That's what happens. And so to never speak your story and share and give an introduction of who you are is to be around people who don't know who you are. And they don't understand why you speak the way that you speak. This is why it's so important for people to introduce themselves as who they are, as in who they are. This is why it's so important, because see, someone can stand amongst you and they can open their mouth and they can start saying stuff that you don't agree with and that you completely despise and hate, and feel that they misrepresent you or something like that, as I was told. Supposedly I misrepresent people, and yet I don't even represent them. I just represent me. And yet I could open my mouth and say some things and people hate it and despise it. And yet behind everything that I'm saying, I'm trying to allow them to hear and understand my story. And yet they fail to see it. They fail to see that, and they fail to understand that each life holds a story. Each person go through experiences. Each person has seen things through each experience, as well as experienced things through every experience, which has built them into the person they are today. And yet there were things which have happened so many choose to forget about. And yet the very person you stand in front of is actually a book full of real life stories. And yet, yes, they will speak a certain way based upon the experiences, once again, that they've been through. They're introducing to you who they are, as well as what they've been through, so that you can come to know who they are. Because see, you don't wake up one day and say, you know what? I'm going to go and become best friends, or I'm going to go and become friends with this person, and not once get to know who they are. You don't do that. Because see, if you become friends with somebody and you don't know who they are, and you don't want to face the truth of who they are because maybe you haven't allowed them to speak their truth. See, some people are afraid to even get to know. They want to be friends with people, right? But they're afraid to allow that person to speak out and say who they are and share their viewpoints and perspective of the world in relation to their experiences of what they've been through. You can't become friends with people, is all I'm saying, that you don't know. It does not happen. Because see, you can become friends with a person you don't know, and that person could have in fact been a mass murderer. I've heard stories and watched the news. I don't watch it now, as I said before, but I've heard stories of people that have actually been mass murderers in their past, and yet people didn't even know until they went and they killed somebody else and was sent back to jail. See, that's why I'm saying you have to know and understand the people you are sitting amongst. Many people sit quietly. That's another reason why I'm so vocal, because sometimes I ain't talking about black folks that be on coonery that just act all crazy and wild. I used to kind of act crazy and wild. I'm not talking about them folks, because see, them type of people will show you who they are, and you will know and understand who they are, and you don't have a choice but to face who they are, because remember, they're showing themselves every time they're loud. But the people who are quiet have been known to make me fear their very presence, because they're quiet. And underneath that quietness, you don't know what's there, because they have not taken the time to show you what it actually is. And so to become friends with them, you don't know who they are. They could be a killer. Who knows? Who knows? There's a family member right now I won't speak on, who they're about to be in, or have been in a relationship with a person, with an individual that committed a mass murder. For me, I separate myself from that type of activity. I can't be around that type of stuff, because that's too much for my mind to handle. And yet this person that choose to be with that person I love to death because they're family, they're blood. I have no choice but to love and accept that person. But the person that they choose to be with, I can't. That's just too much. Is this too much? That's chaos right there. But anyways, the truth. Speaking the truth without apologies. Speaking the truth without a filter. See, there's a lot of problems around us in this world, in this life, that has yet to be resolved because people won't face the very problems that's in front of them. How could you sit and sometimes not even say that there's a problem, and yet you know quietly that there's a problem, and yet you won't speak up and say that, look, there's a problem. This is not with just one race, but with all races, all across the board. There's a problem. Okay, so you know that a crack mother has a baby, right? And the baby is dying out because the baby was never given attention. So the baby is not dying out physically, but the baby is dying out spiritually based upon malnutrition in relation to neglect. That's going on right now in the world today. And yet many people is sitting next to that very crackhead mother. She might not even be on drugs. When I say crackhead, I mean cracked upside the head to the fact that you don't even see the logic and the common sense, that you don't become a mother and neglect your kids and leave them to fend for self and leave them to figure out the world for themselves. That's what I mean when I say crackhead. I don't mean drugs. You got people that are family to these type of people, and yet they don't speak up and say anything. And they allow the child to sit in neglect and try to figure out the world and try to figure out this is going on in a particular community. It's going on and it's rampant. And people are not taking it amongst themselves to say, look, this child right here needs to be guided and directed. Somebody needs to guide this child and direct this child. Because if not, this child more than likely is going to end up becoming what we're seeing played out on the news right now. Every single day, you're seeing some young kid go rob and cheat and steal and almost kill somebody with the barrel of a gun, all because they wasn't given something in their childhood. That's a problem. And yet for you to speak up and say, it causes tension with those that are standing amongst you, because what they feel is you're turning against your own kind. And yet how could I be turning against my own kind when that very thing has happened within my own family, blood family, immediate family? See, if you don't nurture something properly, it'll go out here and turn against the world by doing harmful things to people and putting people's lives in jeopardy and end up all over the news. And then after that happens, the conversation that comes to play is judging that person. After it has happened, after they have been neglected and take it upon themselves to get on the TV in front of the world and show out by shooting up some type of school or something crazy like that. And yet the child was never taken care of from the beginning and was neglected from the beginning. And yet after all this plays out and they go shoot up something, then people want to point fingers in the area of, they don't ever question why did that person go shoot up this, or why did that person go do this. It might not even be a school shooting. It could be anything that has something to do with damaging other people. Why would this person go do such a thing? It becomes because they don't have self-esteem based upon how they were treated in their childhood. That's what happens. And yet the truth was right there in front of you, and nobody took it upon themselves to say, you know what? That problem right there it's going to lead to another bigger problem and possibly disaster and death if I don't walk up and try to fix that problem. If I don't walk up and try to fix that problem. And no, Black Lives Matter, it's no comparison. Because see, that a movement like that is actually creating more problems. It's creating more division. A Black Lives Matter, if you want to rewind back to what I said in another video in relation to truth to even that, a Black Lives Matter could never solve a problem. It does nothing more but create more problems of division. Because if I stand here and an officer kills a man that does not look like him, remember, everything that goes around comes around. So sometimes people that die, the way that they die in a tragic way, is so sad to say, but it came to be sometimes from their own hands. That person did something before they died. And sometimes some deaths outside of these police shootings, some tragic deaths is just a natural process of life. Somebody get cancer, they die. They get cancer, it just happened. That was a part of life. And for other people in my family who have died of cancer, not all of them, but some of them that have died of cancer, they died based upon their actions of smoking too many cigarettes, and it killed them. I had somebody literally beg me to stop their own father from smoking cigarettes so that their father could die. So that their father could not die from cancer. Because the hospital had told us this person had cancer from the simple fact they were smoking too much. And so their child came to me and told me and asked me, could I tell their mom to stop, or tell their dad to stop smoking so much? They died by their own hands. So in relation to the Black Lives Matter and these shootings and these police brutalities, see, our actions have a lot to do with our own destruction. Things are always going around that's coming back around. Bad things. See, I hear things that happen, bad things that happen to good people, but sometimes in our past, and I've been one of them, you plant a bad seed of something, and it just swoops back around to come get you. In a time frame, that's in a whole different time frame of when you planted that bad seed. That's all I'm saying. That is all I'm saying. If a police officer killed a man the way that he killed a man, I'm speaking on those that have a record. If a police officer kills a man the way that he killed a man, and that man had a whole record of in relation to criminal activity, you don't think that man was going to die in the end? That's a truth. Because see, he planted the seed of criminality. And what happened was criminality swooped back around and got him. And it so happened to be that it got him by ways of the hands of a police officer. It got him by the very thing he was sowing seed into. See, to sow seed into something is to have it consume you. I said that on that last video that many people did not like. In relation to the Black Lives Matter and these officers killing people. See, none of us in this life is innocent. None of us. Because remember, we're all placing seeds as we go. If you take and you scream and you cuss out your child and you damage them, that's planting a seed. That's going to come back around, and what that's going to have it do is disrespect you very badly. Your child will disrespect you very badly because what you did was you planted a seed of hatred and embedded that in your child, and they took that upon themselves to eat it alive as self-hatred, and so they spitted it back on you. What goes around is constantly coming around, but at the end of this is truth. It's truth. It's a truthful substance. It's a naked, truthful substance for what it is. It's naked truth. And yet it's not to create harm to anybody when people are sharing and expressing truth. That's not the point. It's not to harm you. It's not to hurt you. I know and understand that when I take myself on these videos with this pad, I know that I got a camera. Yes, I got a camera, a professional camera that people use to shoot and film and all that other stuff. I have a professional camera as well as 2 tripods. And not only that, I have Final Cut Pro in order to do the editing, to take care of everything for the thumbnails, to make all professional. And yet I'm not interested in doing that at this time, because I want this to be where it looks as if I built this channel from the bottom up. That's the point in the position. So say somebody call me out on the truth that I need to do this or I need to fix that in relation to the videos. I'm just speaking back. The reason why I have not did any of that is because I'm trying to make this channel appear as if I'm building it from the ground up. Remember when YouTube first started? When YouTube first started, people were shooting videos and they looked at all type of crazy ways. They looked at unprofessional, because remember, it was real people shooting it and not Hollywood. So I want to kind of take my channel back to that time frame. And yet as I'm filming right now, the quality in which I'm filming is not even back then. It's more updated. And yet it's not as high quality as a camera that I own and possess. Because see, in all of this, anytime you're trying to build a channel, you got to build it from the ground up, from the foundation. So for me, I want to start from the old and come up to the new. That's how I do things. Even in my audio, when I record, because I do audio production, sometimes I take the equalization completely out of my music so that it can sound vintage. That's if I'm building an album or something like that. I'll have some music where the quality is completely low and janky, and other songs where the quality is high class. And there's a point in position. It's a building factor. That's all building factor. I don't mind when people call me out on certain things in relation to the truth and how they see it. I don't mind that, because see, I know there's no intention to hurt or harm me. So going back to when somebody call me out on certain things in relation to truth, that actually helps me. So if somebody say, the audio is not right, that needed in a sense to be called out, because if I would not have been aware and would have uploaded this video, and my hand, that's where my hand was on the microphone. If my hand was blocking the microphone all throughout the video, and then I didn't play it back to listen and actually hear, the video would have been on there as it was with no clear audio. So somebody had to call the problem out in order for me to fix it. And for me, I don't take offense in that, because it builds a better person. It builds a better product. It builds everything to be completely new and wholesome as it should be. So thank you for the person that called me out. I'm still trying not to block my thumb. When I hold the pad, my thumb, that's why I set it on the table, to prevent that. But yes, speaking on the truth. See, I have a whole life story that I never even spoke of, and I will speak on here so that people can understand, even family members understand why I'm saying stuff the way that I'm saying it. Because see, there's problems all around us that need to be fixed. And not only that, people who have been broken, people that have been completely broken a lot of times are the best people to start calling out the very problem that surrounds them. Because see, to be a broken individual is to see pieces in front of you for what they are. Because remember, broken means shattered. It's whole, yes, but it's fragmented. It's divided. So a broken person, a lot of times, that have come from brokenness and yet is working on becoming complete and wholesome, they're the best individual to call out and speak on truth, because once again, brokenness means to see various pieces. It's to see a whole, but in pieces. And seeing how this plays out as a whole together. And so, as you're viewing all the stuff, this truth, people, they're not taking it. And I just kind of leave them to not take it, because see, even when those people go home and they lay down at night, they're forced to lay with themselves over their own truth. They are. They're forced to lay with their own truth. See, you can only escape reality for so long, to the fact that you have to face it. And see, the best gift God has given us is being able to have keen awareness, to see that even ourselves sometimes can be a problem and have problems. To have problems is the best gift that God has ever presented to you, because it makes a whole individual what it is. It's a beautiful picture and photograph is what it is. Because I said this before in one of my other videos, to have perfection is to have perfection is to have imperfection. And to have imperfection is to have perfection. It's to see everything within that photographs. It's to see the smoothness as well as the flaws and the edges. It's to see everything. You don't bypass one to just see another. You don't. Because see, legacy cannot even be drafted and painted, and you just seeing perfection and avoiding reality. Legacy can never be painted with that type of brush. Because see, all through history, we hear of things that were completely chaotic. The greats, people who were great, they were great, and yet many of them had something wrong with them. Many geniuses, there was something great about them, and yet there was something wrong with them, and yet each side of the story had to be told, not just the fact that they were great. See, to show a person like a Picasso and only show one side of him that is the perfect side, the fact that the man was genius and he was able to create the artwork that he created in the photographs and all that, to show that perfection side of him, the perfect side of him, for that to be only shown to the world is to never see that there's a other side that made him human, which was his daily flaws. Picasso had flaws, and they had and needed to be seen, because see, real life people who are poor, real life people who have real life struggles, real life people who go through tragedies, they like to feel real life things. They like to experience real life things that they can relate to. Because remember, they don't have money. Remember, many of them don't have perfect health. Remember, many of them can't escape hardship. And so when they see a Picasso, they want something that they can relate to. And the only thing they can relate to outside of him being genius and his perfect work, the only thing they can relate to is the human side of him, which was his daily struggles once again. People can't relate to anything great if it never shows his human sides and his human downfalls. That's not natural. That's not natural for me to sit amongst something that is so genius and so perfect and so everything outside of me, and yet I got my own flaws and my own perfections and my own temptations, and I'm viewing the genius and I'm saying, oh, that's so beautiful. It's so much more than me. It's so much more than me. Look at me. I have such a miserable, tragic life, and yet that genius and yet that Picasso, they don't. This is why a lot of times in the area in relation to Hollywood and film and certain TV shows, this is the reason why some of them stories might not in fact always be real. I'm saying outside of people's autobiography in the area of real life people, not them, not documentaries of real life people. But this is the reason why you have certain Hollywood stories, a certain celebrity people that's not real. And yet they're playing out these fake dramatized stories saying that such and such got hurt, like a Kim Kardashian got hurt in a robbery, and yet it's not real. That's the reason why you have sometimes stories like that. Because see, real living, breathing people who have real problems, they can't relate to somebody that lives a perfect life who is a celebrity. And so they create these stories that are not in fact real, and yet they're real life stories in which people can relate to. They're fake stories which have been converted into real stories. They're fake stories which have been strategized and orchestrated into a real story to draw real life people in, because real life people cannot relate to the rich and famous. It doesn't happen. It's a great divide between the rich and the famous. And yet even humanness greets in that. It has to, because for that celebrity or whoever to be breathing is to be human. And yet that person that's viewing them, that's poor, that's breathing, watching them, is human. So the human connection is there. And yet for that rich person to never say, look, I'm human, I have issues like you have issues, and I'm completely perfect, is to never relate. And so to never relate is to never have a buyer and a consumer. So you have to be somebody of a Kim Kardashian sometimes to put out fake stories which are not real to actually draw in buyers and consumers. And that's the reason why the stories a lot of times from celebrities are fake. They're fake orchestrated stories so that they can gain consumers. And yet in me saying this, me knowing the industry, why would I have to lie about having worked in the industry? And why would I have to lie about the fact that my cousin right now is on the television screen for millions of people to see, all the way even over in Asia? Why would I have to lie about something like that? Why would I have to lie and say such and such celebrity orchestrated the fact that they got robbed and that wasn't even real? That was a whatever setup. I'm not saying Kim Kardashian. I'm just saying any of the rappers. Why would I have to lie about something like that when I know it actually plays out and has been playing out since the beginning of the industry? Because remember, it's all entertainment. Be ye entertained. Many have gotten mad because I talk the way that I talk in relation to what the industry really is. I'm not turning against the industry. I'm just saying what it is. Why are you so obsessed with somebody and yet you don't even know that that story was never real from the beginning? The story was orchestrated along the way. 6 stories to follow the first story was orchestrated, and yet you get mad at me. And yet I've worked in the industry. That does not make sense. The truth was, I was trying to help you get to know yourself more and invest in yourself more and stop playing in many of these celebrities' lives, so that you can see the fact of a lot of times what you think is real is actually not real, because entertainment, it can't be real. It can't be real unless they took a real life, like a Henrietta Lacks, like a Oprah Winfrey did, unless they took a real life story like that and they chose to play it out on film so people could see the actual story of that real life person. That was a real person with a real life, with a real story. That type of stuff in entertainment, in the entertainment industry, it exists as in the portrayal of the real life story. And yet for the celebrity, all of it's orchestrated, because once again, they have private lives. They got to protect their private lives. Never get mad at me when I say something like that. Never get mad at me and become bitter when I say something like that. And I can't apologize for any of that. That does not make sense. It never makes sense. It does not make sense. And once again, this type of stuff, it goes back to me being an individual and why I'm more so of a loner. I have to be. I think it's God's calling for me to be none other than a loner. And when I say loner, I don't mean being such an outcast and to the fact that I reject other people. That's not the point when I say loner. When I say loner is I could be around you, work around you, be around you as an association, possibly even be friends with you. And yet I can't always be around you 24 hours a day because I have to observe the world for what it is, the truth. I have to be an observer. See, the person that got all type of associates around them, many of them are loners because they connect with people for a time period and then they go and they sit alone and observe the truth of the world. That way it can be rebroadcasted on TV. Because remember, if you work in the entertainment industry, in the TV and film industry, you have to be an observer of the world. You have to take that information and take it back to that corporation so that that corporation can sell it back to the masses of what it is. And sometimes that comes out in the form of documentaries. Understand what I'm saying? Keep your mind open. Don't prejudge. And don't get angry at a person like me who is seeing the world and the truth for what it is. See, a person like me will be the best candidate to work for a corporation or somebody that is into documenting the world. Because I'm not passing judgment on the world. I'm seeing the judgment. I'm seeing the truth for what it is. And what I'm doing is I'm speaking it back to you. But oftentimes I'm not placing complete judgment in that. I'm showing you. That's what documentaries do. Some might feel, okay, well, anytime you make a comment about this or that, you're expressing personal feelings and you're expressing many bias in the documentaries that you're giving to the world and the masses. Is that the truth? It's a question. Because see, even a cameraman that's filming the world as he's going out in the jungle, in the heart of Africa or wherever he goes to film a documentary, to be on a place like the Discovery Channel, even that man holds some personal feelings and sometimes preconceives judgment, but sometimes he pushes the judgment aside to allow him to do his job, which is to film and present to you on the film roll or on the camera what the actual story was, which took place in front of him. And yet, even in relation to that, it took writers to do that. Many might feel that they had their own bias and preconceived judgments in the area of that, presenting the story. And yet, once again, maybe because to be human, once again, is to be imperfect. To be a human filming out for Discovery Channel or be a human taking all the world in so that it can go back to a place like a Discovery Channel or go to a History Channel or wherever and include somebody that helped write that. Sometimes it's to include your own bias perspective in the area of opinion because that's just human. And sometimes the point in position is not to be completely judgmental. Because see, if you never had an opinion about something, then you can never be human. All humans have an opinion about something. That's just natural. That's living, breathing human. And so it's taken as a bias or it's taken as a judgment. And yet I'm not judging. And yet many at the Discovery Channel who is viewing stuff, they're not judging. If they shoot a documentary in a jail cell somewhere, they're not judging. And yet many might feel that they are. They're not judging. It might be viewed as bias. But remember, in order to have a story, it's to view it with human eyes. And it's to document the story in the way that you're seeing the actual story. That way you can print it out just enough to put it on a global platform for the world to see. Some living, breathing human, which was completely imperfect, had to do that. Otherwise, the story could not stand. Somebody had to deliver it. That's all I'm saying. Somebody had to deliver the truth of what they've seen. And yet, yes, maybe it had been once again documented by how they seen it, or maybe not. Maybe the truth was already there, standing right there, and they just picked it up on the camcorder, or they just picked it up in notes as they were viewing and observing. Remember, when people are shooting documentaries and they go out here and they're filming stuff, many of them are researchers. Many of them are into journalism or whatever else. And sometimes they're not often always seeing stuff based upon their truth and their perspective. A lot of times their job description states for them to actually sit and document what they're seeing right there. That way, when they're seeing it, they can go back in the actual workroom and write out the story for what they actually seen. It's documented on paper. That's in many people's job description who are working at places like Discovery, who are working at like Discovery Channel, who are working at places like the History Channel. All this type of stuff, stories have to be documented. If you don't document a story to sell to the masses, then the story won't even exist. I'm saying people won't even know that it exists. And yet, once again, people feel people's personal thoughts, feelings, and biases is played into that. Well, once again, I'm thinking a human is just a human. Doesn't every human have a voice? I mean, they should, because if you're a human with no voice, then that means you're just silenced by something either other than yourself, or you're silenced by yourself, by your own mind. And that's how people come to never know you or the truth that you feel that you hold in the way that you see the world. Don't expect other people to apologize who are speaking the truth about things that are going on in the atmosphere. Never apologize. I myself is telling myself that. Never apologize, dear self. Never apologize. See, because a person who never apologizes for the way in the view that they see the world, those people a lot of times are often given sometimes the greatest opportunities. Because remember, they're seeing things as they are, not as they want them to be. They're seeing things as they are, not as they want them to be. And sometimes you'll have a History Channel or whoever else say, you know what, I like your mind. I like your mind. Come and help me to edit this. Because see, you hold a perspective and a laser focus that's so different than the average person here in America, in the community of people. You hold a different perspective, and to hold a different perspective is to help in the area of painting a different story, in the area of facing the truth. Because see, if you're not a person that's willing to see and observe and face the truth for what it is, sometimes you can't work for an entertainment industry and a corporation. I'm not saying celebrity type of stuff. I'm saying this stuff in relation to shooting documentaries and showing it and documenting that. If you can't face the truth in the area of stuff like that, in the real life story area, you can never achieve greatness and sit amongst people like that who create those sort of things. Because remember, they're delivering the truth. To set a documentary out is to propel the truth. Why do people watch documentaries in the first place? They're watching a documentary because, first of all, it relates to them and their family. That's why they watch a documentary. See, because some of them real life documentaries hold a lot of stories in which they've never seen before, so it sparks intrigue. That's human nature, intrigue, the spark intrigue. But not only that, if somebody committed some type of murder in the most devious way that you can do it. And it's on a History Channel or Discovery Channel or whoever. Somebody in somebody's family might have done something like that. That's what I'm trying to say. And so they tune in to hear about the truth. They hear about the truth. They want to know and understand the truth. They want to know and understand what is underneath that. Like that guy that did that school shooting. Stuff like that ends up becoming documentaries because underneath that, not only is the person that's shooting the documentary and the person in the room that have wrote the story or have come to know the story, they were all in question of what happened and what led up to that. So that they can print the story and present it back to the world and share it so that everybody can hear it. And they make of it what they make of it. The people that's viewing it. Real life stories. See, people are turned away from people who share real life stories because there's no glamour in it. There's no glamour in the fact of saying, you know what? My name is Benjamin, and when I was a child, I was molested. There's no glamour in that. There's actually shame and shun in that. And so when you present it, people a lot of times they run away because they're examining it from an observing eye of, oh my gosh, I can't relate to that. That's too truthful. Well, the truth is the truth. And oftentimes we need to face the truth. Because there's people in their graves right now who are dead right now that the truth laid there unspoken, and is why they're dead. Because see, to have a truth buried within you is sometimes to kill you. It is. If I got a truth within me and I allow that truth to rot and simmer, because some grown men walking around have actually been molested and they never told, and that's why they get on drugs and alcohol. And people wonder why is such and such an alcoholic? Why is such and such whatever? That's because they were molested by a pedophile. They didn't know how to deal with it, and so they went and got on drugs, and they allowed that to fester within their soul, and it killed them off, and it killed them quickly. Because they knew if they presented the fact of they were molested, they knew that that might have actually tore up their whole family. Because see, sometimes families, more so black families, they don't want to face enough of the truth that little Johnny or little Kimmy was molested, because they don't want to face the truth because they don't want to deal with it. I've seen even that T.D. Jakes movie. T.D. Jakes, the minister, that movie where the mother had a boyfriend, the boyfriend molested the daughter, and then the daughter went and told her mother, and the mother didn't even deal with the situation. The mother blamed the daughter. The daughter had to be like 8, 9 years old. The mother's boyfriend molested the daughter. The daughter went and told the mother, and the mother blamed the child. The little girl spoke her truth, and the mother disowned her and basically got rid of her by letting her know, get out my face, I don't want to hear that. The mother disowned her and the daughter's actual truth. How does that begin to happen and play out? Stuff like that. That was a T.D. Jakes movie. And yet it was real because it happens in the black community all the time. And yet it's never spoken of because, once again, to not face the truth is to let it just air its own self by allowing a breathing human to air its own breath and just die off in it. And yet somebody took it upon themselves amongst T.D. Jakes, or even himself, T.D. Jakes, to air that story in a film of a young girl being molested by her mother's boyfriend, and her mother's boyfriend just kicking, and her mother's boyfriend just kicking the girl to the curb. In the end, what happened was The girl that was molested, if I got the right movie right, in the end, that little girl had that same dress that had blood all over it from that man molesting her. That same little girl walked up in the church holding the dress and shot that very man who had molested her, which was her mother's boyfriend. She shot and killed him. Right there in front of the church for all the church members to see. She shot and she killed that man. Because see, he molested her, and yet nobody wanted to face the truth. And yet she was left to die off with it festering inside of her internally. She was left with that. That's what happens when you don't face the truth. When you don't face the truth, it comes around and kills other people. Because see, somebody's soul has to die. When you don't face the truth of somebody is suffering, or somebody was neglected, or something, somebody ends up dying in that. The truth. They do. Yes, they do. People get killed in the end because of stuff like that. Because see, stuff like that, me watching that movie of that little girl being molested by her boyfriend's daughter at like 8, 9 years old, that was a tragedy in itself. And yet what went around had to come back around. What went out, the seed that was planted of him molesting that girl like that, it had to come back around, and it came back around in the form of her killing him. That was her own truth. And see, somebody will stand and they will nitpick and judge that girl in that film for killing that man and just let the truth bypass their eyes of the fact the young girl was being molested. See, you just don't, as I said before, you just don't go out here, pick up a gun, right? And then go shoot a man in the center of a church for everybody to see, right? You just don't do that. Something happened. Somebody didn't hear you. Somebody didn't allow you to speak. Your voice was not heard. And yet to make it heard was to go in the center of a church and kill somebody. And that's what happened. And it's so sad, and no, it's not funny. And I didn't laugh because of that. I'm laughing at the people that bypassed the fact that the little girl was molested. And once again, that wasn't just a film. It's happening right now and every day across all generations of people, across all races of people. And has happened across all lifespans of people. And yet, so many of us bypass the truth. I have 2 little baby cousins right now who are about to serve time in jail, 7 years, who were supposed to be, they were going to turn 30, they was going to actually serve up to 33 years. These 2 cousins are, but I believe is 13, is one 13, 14, and the other one is what, 17, almost going on 18. They're going to serve 7 years in jail and was supposed to serve 33 years, but they didn't end up serving that time, and they got it cut short because, see, there's a problem behind all of this. To follow people you don't know and to follow people who don't expose their truth is to get caught up in a thing as of which I'm about to speak on. To be a follower. Got to watch and observe who you're around. My cousins took the time to take the time upon themselves to surround themselves with people who were supposedly their blood cousins, and yet those same blood cousins turned against them and turned them into the police, and yet all of them was involved in the crime. But not only that, my 2 baby cousins followed in the footsteps of a criminal. They didn't commit this crime alone, is what I'm saying. The person that was older than them and that was into this type of criminal activity guided them in doing this. And yet they did not once say, you know what, we might actually go to jail for this type of thing. So don't do it like that. Do it like this. And I say that because in all of this, their fingerprints was picked up in the house where they did the robbery. following people they don't know. Young kids, babies, teenagers following people they don't know, or so they thought they knew. The truth. That's the truth. And yet when I say that, nobody wants to hear that. They don't want to hear that. The naked truth. They don't want to hear that. So now you're going to serve time for somebody that guided you and the one that guided you and had you follow them into this activity. And yet they turned you in and they walked away and you're left to serve time. The truth. The truth. The truth. The absolute God forbidden truth. Forbidden truth. Truth is oftentimes forbidden. I can't apologize for speaking the truth. I won't and I refuse to apologize for speaking the truth. Because once again, my life holds a story. Don't all of our lives hold a story? If you don't think your life is valuable enough to hold a story, then maybe you shouldn't even be alive. And I'm not saying that in a bad, negative way. See, sometimes the way that I speak and I say stuff, I know it gets me in trouble in the way that I speak and say stuff, and yet it's the truth. When I say that if you don't value yourself enough, if you don't value yourself enough to understand that your life holds a story, if you don't even think that you value yourself enough to say what the story is and you shouldn't be alive, it's the truth. Because that means that you're a ghost already. That means people are standing and living and breathing amongst you, standing next to somebody that is a complete ghost. They're standing amongst somebody that's a complete total opposite of them. It's a ghost. It's already dead in a sense. That's all I'm saying. No, that's not negative. See, everybody takes the truth as a negative. And I'm seeing and observing that as well. Somehow the truth somehow have stood and said, I'm negative. That's what the truth came and said, and yet the truth never said it. The person that took it in and consumed the truth said it to themselves that that's what the truth said. That's interesting. Because I think what's so interesting about this whole truth matter, it becomes so interesting when somebody dies in your family. When somebody in your family dies, and yet there was a problem there that led up to their demise, and yet you don't face the truth that that is what actually caused their death. And yet me, and today in 2018, I survive in truth of the fact that my father, he created his own demise because, see, he was selling drugs since the 70s. My dad sold drugs for over 20-something years, almost 30 years, up until his death. Although he had an electrical engineering degree and although he was a Marine. My dad died because of his ways, right? Selling drugs and all this other stuff, killing other people off. That's what my dad did. And I had to tell him about himself. He loved me, but he didn't like what I said. I told my dad, you shouldn't be doing this. Why do you feel you need to go back and forth to jail in the area of killing your own off? I don't get and understand this. And it wasn't me judging, it was me trying to help him. And yet I was able to face the truth of that. And I'm going to make a video. After this video, I'm going to make another video on another different day over even my dad's story, because even that needs to be told. See, you don't bypass the truth. Because when you bypass the truth, you create a bigger problem. You create a bigger problem. You can create a bigger problem for yourself and for others by passing the truth as it stands before your very eyes. Sometimes you yourself is the problem. And I've been guilty of that as well. I'm the problem because I speak on the problem. See, they say you are what you are, and you are what you eat, and you are what you live and you listen to, and you are what you consume. And so me, myself, a lot of times, I am the problem in the world full of other problems. That's what I'm saying. What you are is what you see. And so I am a problem who sees various problems. People like this, they work best at helping other people fix problems because the world is full of problems. People like this are best at corporations whose sole intention is to fix problems in areas of where they need to be fixed. Help write a story where there's a problem, and the best way to fix it is by showing the world that there's a problem so that they can get involved as well. I know my role in society. I know my place. I might be a distant individual as the observer I am, but I know my place. Sometimes I say I don't fit, and I feel like I don't fit, and I don't know where I stand. I don't know where I stand completely out there, but within right here, I know where I stand in the area of me seeing certain things as they are, the truth. And yet that separates and divides me away sometimes from other people because they don't want to see it and accept it for what it is. It's the truth. The naked truth to the naked eye is the truth. What they do is they walk away. Yes, they walk away. But not only that, they view me in a negative light because it makes them face themselves. That themselves are not living their truth. To live your truth is to live your wholesome and wholeness and then expose that. That's living your truth, because sometimes living your truth and living it so much can actually help other people to live their truth. Because see, to live in a society where it's all these standards, it's to be disowned at times. Sometimes even by your own kind, and sometimes by even by others that don't look like you. It's to help others. And the only way you can help other people who are struggling or who have struggled is to tell your own story so that they can see it and understand it and know and feel that there is somebody out there that's like them, that can relate, that can help to solve the problem of loneliness. See, many people today, they struggle with loneliness in the area of they can't fit in because of all these society standards and ways. And so they feel left out. Surrounded by a community of people and not feeling as if they belong, they feel left out, which leads to loneliness. It does. It leads to loneliness. And me, myself, I'm not lonely. I was once lonely as a loner, but today I'm not lonely because I'm so busy observing all this information to be taken in so I can make sense of it, so I can deliver it back out. Whether it's delivering it right here on YouTube or if I got to go over there where I usually am, discovery. That's what I'm saying. I'm taking in so much information, and yet the lonely hearted. Did Whitney Houston have a song in relation to the lonely hearted people? No, she had broken hearts. Where do broken hearts go? But the lonely hearted people. So many of them are out here. Many of them are even on YouTube. Many of them are plastered all over social media. And sometimes they're lonely once again because they don't take the time to say, look, I'm here right here on social media. Many of them is even in the Janet Jackson community. I'm going back to Janet Jackson again. Many of the lonely people are in the Janet Jackson community, and they know they lonely, and yet they don't say because they're constantly posting about Janet Jackson. And yet, see, nobody could never know that you are aware. Nobody could ever know that you're aware to the world. Nobody could ever know that you are alive and exist if you never posted yourself. So that's where loneliness begins. And this is the truth, and yet I'm hated for it. If you are posting about Janet Jackson or whoever, Beyonce all day, and you say, I'm lonely, and you might not even say it in words. If you never put yourself out there to show the world that you exist, then you will continue to be lonely. Because if you're on social media and all people see is you posting Janet Jackson and they see you just posting Beyonce, then they don't know that you exist. They just know that they see these famous faces and you're full of these famous faces. That's the truth. They think that you're full of these people, so you don't need company. And yet when I speak like this, I am oftentimes disliked because I'm offending others. Sometimes that is the point in my position, is to offend, to open up your eyes. It's not to offend you just to target you. That's not the thing. It's to offend you to open up your eyes to your very nature. That's all I'm doing, is to open up your eyes to your very nature. And not only that, I'm opening up your eyes to see a bigger problem, which is also yourself. You get what I'm saying? See, because for me to be a problem, standing in a problem, and stand amongst other real living beings who are imperfect, who have problems, and to stand face forward in front of you, calling out the very problem that I see, is to understand that you too are a problem. The viewer watching me, if I call out something, that means that there is a problem there, and I'm calling it out. Just like this young lady called me out about the fact that my audio was off. She called me out in the problem that she saw. Because see, for her, it was a problem. She was standing there with a problem of, look, I don't hear the thing that I should be hearing. And so that other individual on the other side of the camera had a problem from the beginning, because they should have knew not to cover up the microphone and cover up the sound of the microphone so that we, the people hearing, could hear. Problems, back and forth problems. That's not to say that you're defective. If somebody say that there's a problem, you're a problem, that's not to say that you're defective. See, I think this is where the problem begins as well. People feel that if you call them out on something, that you are saying that they're defective. And that's not it. Because we all know to live and breathe is to be human, is to be imperfect. It's not saying that you're defective. It's saying that there's a problem. See, the problem and the human can coexist as one. A problem and a human can coexist as one. Because I could be a human with a problem, and yet sometimes I can be the very problem, and yet once again, somewhere in this nature, I'm detached from the problem. You got what I'm saying? Because a problem stands on its own. It can just come out inside of the human. It can come out to the world from the human. You can be a human, which is a problem, walking around in American society, causing other problems in other people's world, because you are in fact the problem. But to see, even in the problem, there's a root. There's a cause for even that. There's a root in that. And I'm going to give an example with myself. I am a problem because I walk out here and sometimes I kill my relationships. I know that people will not want to be bothered with me relationships wise, because I am a problem, because even that stems from my childhood. The problem of not giving proper nurturance by a mother in the way that she should have given me the nurturance. And so when I go out here and I try to form relationships, a lot of times it don't work, because see, when your mother don't give you nurturance, what that does is you don't form proper bonds and connections and attachments. And so what you do is you sit back and you observe the world for what it is, because you don't know how to bond and relate with others. So you sit and you watch the world and you take in all this information. And as you're taking it in, you're also putting the information back out. Information people don't want to hear. And so that is a fact, a problem. You are a problem who has presented a problem to other people. And yet, me being the problem that I am, I'm actually coexisting in the problem that I am, but I'm also detached as well from the problem. You feel what I'm saying? All problems in people's life have a root, and people don't want to face even that. I have a problem relating to others based upon my childhood in the area of my mother not bonding with me properly and being raised by my grandmother, and me taking in this information, which has that bonding caused me to be a loner and to take in this truth and serve it back to you. And it causes a disconnection all around me. People don't like me. It causes issues, that problem. And yet I have the problem of that area, dealing with that area. And yet I myself am a problem. And yet once again, the problem is its own thing. That was a problem, right? That right there, that childhood situation was its own problem. And yet I grew up in that, and I'm still somewhat growing into that, because sometimes what was planted there has a hard time being broken even when you work on it, because your childhood built your future. Which is why I have issues with relationships today. It formed me to just observe a lot of things and put things out there to make others aware. And yet they were properly groomed in the area of socialization skills and social skills, to the fact they know when to keep their mouth closed, and sometimes I don't. And yet people like that walk around keeping their mouth closed, they help to contribute to the world's problems. Because to never say nothing when you see it, it's to allow that problem to grow. So I feel those that have been groomed in proper socialization, they keep their mouth closed, and yet they contribute to the world's problems. And for me, even that is a problem. And I feel that God made me this way. The loner that I can be at times, I feel God made me this way on purpose. Because see, to expose a problem is to help fix it, not contribute to it. It's to call it out and say, you know what, there's a problem here. Discovery Communications, Discovery Channel, there is a problem here. We need to film that. That right there needs to be an episode. Oprah Winfrey, whoever else, this is a problem here. We need to fix that. That problem needs to be settled. It needs to be called out and shown, expressed, so other people can see, so that they don't make the same mistake as this problem and this issue right here. So yes, I never apologize for the truth that I speak. I'm ending this video right here because I'm way over time. Time X, dear, time X. But yeah, how do you see the world? How do you interact with the world? Does that pose and cause problems with other people? Does it cause mismatched relationships? What does it cause on your end? I don't apologize, because I view life laser focused with the naked eye.